greasy nose, man. Like I'm sorry. I wash my face in the morning, but I'm just not easy to look at, dude. I'm easy to listen to.
It just looked like you were sweating. I didn't know if maybe
Dude, it's freezing outside.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's freezing, dude. Last night when we were out, dude, I didn't even have to wear a coat. To this morning, I thought it was the same. I mean, I wore the same clothes I wore last night, but like to come to the studio. But I walked outside and I was freezing. I didn't even grab a coat. I should have, or a hat at least for my bald head.
I thought it was going to be another beautiful day.
I mean, it's beautiful out. It's just cold.
Right.
It feels like fall. Dude, it's election day.
Perfect for episode 22.
On election day. That's when this is dropping, right?
Yeah. If you're listening to this on release date.
Which of course you are, because you're all dedicated listeners.
Yeah. If you're listening to this on release day, it is election day. Go out there and vote.
If you haven't already.
Yeah. I don't understand the early
voting. Can you
voting
vote often and early?
Probably. You don't need an ID. You can do whatever you want.
Dude, I walk in there with my ID, like...
I force them to look at my ID.
I literally like, here's my ID.
Yeah.
I've heard that there's places they're like, I can't look at your ID. I'm not even allowed to, like pollsters or whatever. I'm literally like, this world is crazy, man. Dude, election day, man. It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Episode 22 of Lowe Expectations.
22.
Gary.
Anthony, it's great to see you, buddy.
And it is election day. Get out there and vote. I don't understand. Sorry, I had a glitch there. I had a glitch there. My brain literally went in like two different directions for a topic. But yeah, I don't understand the I force them to look at my ID.
I do too.
Because I don't understand why we don't do that.
Yeah, we should.
You need an ID to do so many things, but require an ID to vote. Gary, it's racist.
Well, it's that. It's oppressive. It's demeaning, maybe. I don't know, dude.
I don't know.
It seems pretty easy. But
it seems pretty easy. I mean, if you want to go out and, drink, you need an ID. If you want to drive.
I like that's the first thing you went to. The first example was if you want to drink, you have to show your ID.
I'm just saying, like, you need an ID to do so many things.
You need a school ID.
You need an ID.
Even in, like, high school, you need a school ID. They give you a school ID.
I think you need an ID. I think you need to present an ID to get a library card.
You're probably right, dude.
It's
to get a library card, though, I think you have to show like 3 financial statements. You have to like give them your credit card. You have to like do all this stuff. But man, are you all right, dude? You're still dealing with this thing.
I'm still dealing with this thing.
That's why we couldn't record.
Yeah, that's why.
You were terrible, dude. I couldn't even talk to you. You would call me, and I'd be like, Anthony, I just can't talk to you right now. Your voice is bothering me.
That was the sickest I've been in a long time.
Yeah.
And
probably the COVID, dude. Actually, I think there's a new thing out there that's like more deadly than COVID. I just saw an article.
Well, I might have had
perfect timing, dude.
I might have had it.
Well, you survived, so
I did survive.
No medicine?
No medicine. Well, other than like over-the-counter type
Robitussin.
stuff. No Robitussin.
Tussin fixes everything, man.
What was I taking? Dayquil, NyQuil,
all the quills.
All the quills. Yeah. It was
brutal. You sounded terrible, dude. And you're still like hacking up a little
and
bit.
I still got this cough. It's still lingering.
Lingering.
I got a lot of junk in there. But yeah, that's why we didn't have a new episode. I re-released that episode with Sergeant John Mattingly. And it is a good one. I was proud of that episode. It was a pleasure to have him on and be able to tell the story about what happened, because
what actually happened,
not what. Yeah. I mean, what the press did and what our media did with that incident, it's wild. Mm-hmm. It is wild. The difference between what we're told and what actually happened in all aspects of life right now, but definitely and especially within the world of law enforcement.
Yeah.
It is wild what is put out there.
Yeah. So well, we're glad. I mean, if you're listening to this on election day, we're glad that you're taking a break from watching the TV, because I'm sure that's what most people will be doing.
Right. Is it going to
be a short night or a long night, Anthony? What do you think? Talking election.
My prediction is, it's going to be a long night and crazy stuff's going to happen. The last election, you're covering windows, you're shutting everything down, you're opening everything back up hours later, and the results are different. I don't know. weird to me. Didn't seem normal.
Are you an
but
election denier?
But here's the thing. I think most people, regardless of what you think happened during the last election, I think most people don't have a lot of faith in our system
Election
of voting
process.
voting right now.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of faith in the process right now.
I think they definitely lost a lot of faith in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's on both sides. I mean, when Trump won, Hillary was an election denier.
That's right.
You know, and then when Biden won, all the Trump people were election denier. Well, not all of them. And I wouldn't say I'm an election denier. I just have a lot of questions. It just seems weird. There a lot of weird things happened.
Yeah.
During election night.
I think this election has been like entertaining to me. Like this election cycle. Like there's been great moments.
Right.
Of like just great moments and then moments of hilarity.
Yeah.
Is that a word?
Yeah. You know what? You know one thing that is I find so amusing, and I will watch him over and over again.
Who?
Is Tim Walz.
You like watching him? For the entertainment value.
Have you watched him come out on stage?
No.
It's like the Tim Walz jazz hands extraordinaire. Like
So he's got the wild hands.
Dude, he's like wild. He does this weird like kick thing.
I did see that one.
Watching him, I'm like, who is this guy?
They say he's super masculine, right? Like a coach or like a former
yeah.
football coach and
I
stuff.
love when he puts on like hunting coats and stuff.
When he
like,
couldn't load a shotgun, that was my favorite.
Carhartt stuff, or he's wearing like flannels and he's trying to like, appeal to men,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
But then he comes out on stage with his jazz hands
and lifted up his leg,
like kicking his leg all weird. I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah. Dude, there's been so many funny moments. I think the garbage incident was hilarious when the next day Trump literally has a garbage truck with his name on the side of it and he's riding this garbage truck. That was a super good moment.
And now they're trying to scrub that. The White House is trying to scrub that and change.
When Biden said that
change.
the only garbage is
right.
His followers. Yeah, that was
wild.
Was super funny.
I think another iconic moment was Kamala at her rally.
Okay.
Where someone in the crowd yells, "Jesus is Lord." And she's like, you're at the wrong rally.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm
wow.
like, holy cow. And we were talking about this just last evening, how for, decades, every cycle, every presidential cycle.
Not decades, since this process has begun.
Right. Even your Democrat candidates have always tried to present themselves as having Judeo-Christian values,
because a lot of the country holds those values. I mean, we were founded on those values. First of all,
right?
I mean, let's start there, right? We were founded on those values, and those values have slowly declined. I mean, they've carried, but they've slowly declined. They've rapidly declined in recent years,
right?
And for her to say that, I was dumbfounded. I was not believe that she said that.
I've never seen a candidate so openly basically like thumb their nose at Christianity.
And she's basically like, I don't want you here.
Yeah, you don't
Which
belong
means
here.
Not just that person who said that, but
right.
all people who believe that Jesus is Lord.
Right.
Yeah.
You're at the wrong I was dumbfounded by that.
That's half the country, potentially. Right. And it might, they might not be true believers, but like they at least hold some of those values.
Correct.
Yeah. So that was a wild moment too.
And then like a couple days later, she's at a church trying to quote scripture. I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah, it was wild. I also liked, dude, when like Trump went on Rogan, JD Vance went on Rogan. Like I thought those were great interviews. I listened to both of those.
Right.
I really enjoyed them.
I think JD Vance is one of the most normal dudes. Like I'd like to hang out with that guy.
What's he like 30s? Like he's like super young
he
too,
is
right?
So intelligent. And he's so smart, so intelligent. I love how much he talks about his family.
Yeah.
And his kids and stuff like that.
He's super articulate also.
Very articulate.
And he's humble.
Sharp.
Like when he doesn't know the answer, he literally says, I don't know. I don't know that. Where Trump, I mean, he's not when you look up humility, you're not going to see Donald Trump that's up behind it. So he like answers everything.
Right.
Which is part of his style. But like, yeah.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting. Tonight's going to be an interesting night. I think it's going to be a short night and it's going to be a landslide.
Yeah, you told me that. I disagree. I think that when I watch Kamala's, her rallies and everything she's doing, how she's handling her running for president, I see someone who is doing such a poor job and doesn't seem to care about it, which worries me because it makes me feel like she already knows how it's going to come out.
I just think it's who she is. I mean, that's what I think.
I don't know. I've never seen someone have such a poorly run. Like some of the stuff she says, like every time she's on the news, like whether you agree with her or don't agree with her, she's not articulate. She cannot put her thoughts together. She's kind of like me right now on this podcast.
I think you're doing a good job, dude. You had that one glitch earlier, but
yeah. But yeah, I don't understand who her handlers are and who the people are behind her.
Yeah.
Like you have to.
I think they're stressed and like there's turmoil.
There's still no policy. She still has never put forth any policy.
So that's interesting that you said that. I think she looks desperate right now. Extremely desperate, especially for the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
But we'll see, man. Tonight's going to be a fun night. Dude, are we going to call each other? You want to call each other tonight?
I guess we can.
All right. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm off. I'm not working. Okay. So we'll keep an eye on it.
All right.
We'll keep an eye on it.
All right. What are we talking about?
Well, basically, I think the main thing you could get from this show is what would you do? Because I think on this episode we're talking about the Daniel Penny case. We're also talking
who's not a cop, and then we're also going to talk about crazy video I saw of a guy on a roof of a bar back in Copstown. Yeah, where was that? What are the options?
Right? Texas. Yeah, we'll talk about that, and then maybe we'll get into that shooting, the officer involved shooting in Chicago. They're trying to fire.
What
this
would
guy.
you do? Yeah, the 5-second foot pursuit. What would you do?
Yeah,
or 15-second foot pursuit. What would you do?
It wasn't even that long.
No,
so that's what we're going to get into real quick here at the top of the episode. If you remember our friend Officer Mac Marquette, the episodes we've done on him, in the show notes for this episode, in the episode notes, I'm going to include a link for Give, Send, Go campaign for him. Since he's been charged with murder, out of a job, the financial toll is huge on him and his family.
To defend himself.
Yeah.
For doing his job.
And also, trying to earn money for his family. So, yeah, I'm going to put a link to Give, Send, Go campaign for him. Please consider
if you have the ability,
him.
I mean, not everybody does, and we're not trying to pressure anybody, but if you have the means and the ability to help a guy out, like he's one that we would say you should help him out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked about his case. We support him. We back him up, and we've had the opportunity as a podcast to support him. So yeah, just encourage you to listen to those episodes if you haven't listened to those episodes about his case, and consider supporting him.
Yeah, he's the guy who had a gun pointed at him,
right?
And he stopped the threat.
He acted with reasonable and justified force, and they charged him with murder. So, yeah, think about supporting him. So, yeah, where do you want to go first? You want to do the Daniel Penny case first?
Yes, let's break it down.
All right. So, Daniel Penny,
he's in the news. So the trial
in the news right now.
Is it going to be over? No, it's not going to be over by the time
the trial just started.
Yeah, the opening statements were made. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a super long trial. Probably a couple days.
No, they're saying weeks.
Weeks.
I think I read somewhere that they're saying it's gonna probably be several weeks.
All right.
So they have the jury picked. As of this recording, they just had opening statements. So, when this goes out, it'll be several days into
like day 2.
Yeah.
Although the courthouses usually aren't open election day, are they?
True.
So they might get one day of testimony in.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with the Daniel Penny case, Daniel Penny is the Marine. I think he was a Marine. Yeah. He was riding the
F train.
The F train in New York City. This was back in May of 23. So we're over a year out. There is a gentleman on the train who is threatening people, harassing people, causing a ruckus. And quite honestly, we don't have a lot of details on what this guy was doing. But
so according to Penny, that's his name, right?
Yeah, Daniel Penny.
Daniel Penny. So according to Daniel Penny, he was on the F train. This guy comes onto the train. He tears his coat off, throws it at a passenger who's sitting beside him. he says, "I'm going to kill you," like yells this stuff. So he's yelling at passengers. Penny said he has like earpods in because he's listening to music. So this guy's yelling. So he pulls his AirPods out or whatever.
Right.
He pulls his ears or whatever.
Yeah.
And this guy, the guy who's now deceased, says, "I'm going to kill you. I'm prepared to go to jail for life, and I'm willing to die."
Yeah.
Yeah. So he says those things, and this guy. Are we going to call him by? Are we going to name him or no?
Who the deceased?
The dead guy.
I don't think we need to.
Okay. So, but I don't want to refer to him as the dead guy. That seems weird and not very
all right.
polite.
Say his name then.
Well, I'm not saying his name. I'm not
See
going.
what I did there?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
BLM was all over this
So
because Daniel Penny
Yes.
is white and the suspect, the deceased.
Yeah. Of course, race was an issue.
You know, even though when Daniel Penny put him in the chokehold to stop him from doing his action, another male was helping him hold this guy down, and that other citizen who was helping was also black.
Yeah. So basically, this guy's making threats, acting crazy. There's women and children on the train. The whole interaction takes less than 5 minutes, according to Penny, because it's between stops. Right, like that's when this happens.
Okay.
The stops are very short in New York City.
Yeah.
He says it happened. It was less than 5 minutes. So this whole story of 15 minutes he held him in a chokehold is crazy. He was actually even called a hero by a person of color who was on the train at the time.
Yeah.
A few days after this.
I remember
hit the
that.
news. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And he says, "I knew I had to act." That's what Penny says. So like that's kind of the point of this episode
Right.
is what would you do?
Right.
Right. So this guy's on the train, minding his own business. He has a certain level of skill in ground fighting or in hand-to-hand combat. Actually, probably all aspects of combat, being a Marine.
Right.
And he's sitting on the train, minding his business, going from one stop to another. A guy comes in where there's other civilians in the train, just riding the train, public transport, no police to be found. Right.
Right.
And he tears off his coat, throws it at passengers, makes threats to kill somebody. He's
Right.
willing to go to jail. And this guy acts. He steps in, he puts him in a, what do you call that? A rear naked choke.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what you would call it. I'm not a jujitsu guy, or a CrossFit guy, but so he puts him in a rear naked choke and he's basically laying on his back. So Penny's on his back. And the dead guy is like his back is on his chest, if that
Right.
makes sense. So it's a rear naked choke.
Yeah.
And Penny has one hand on top of his head, kind of controlling him, which is interesting because a choke, you're really going to squeeze it like with both hands if you
Right.
can, but he's just holding him there.
From what we've seen.
From what we've seen. I've seen still shots. I've seen some short
video
clips, but it's not like full clips. It's really hard. I couldn't.
I don't
find
know
it
that
either,
there's
dude. I
a
was
full
looking.
video out there.
Yeah. So anyway, there's two other men who step in and kind of try to control this guy while he's being held in a chokehold.
Right.
His chest is rising and falling, according to Penny, during the whole incident.
Right.
And the stop is they stop. Penny is, so the guy's obviously unconscious.
Unconscious?
That was great. That was funny. And EMS and police arrive and try to perform life-saving efforts. He gets transferred to the hospital and is declared deceased.
Right. So one of the bombshells that came out in opening statements, and more and more is going to come out because again, we don't have very many details about this case. There was an autopsy done, and they basically said they ruled it homicide by constriction to his neck or something like that. But there's no other information about the autopsy. Like, were there any drugs on board, any pre-existing conditions, like anything like that? We do know that the deceased suspect in this case, I guess we can't call him the suspect, deceased victim in this case, had a drug habit. So I'm imagining there were probably drugs on board.
There was mention that like his mother had passed away like a year prior and he really went downhill from there.
Yeah.
Apparently this guy was kind of like known to the community because he would dress up like, what's that guy's name? Michael Jackson. So he would wear like a Michael Jackson coat and he would dance and he was like people were kind of entertained by him.
But he was also known to have really erratic behavior.
Sure.
I think he had prior assaults on his record, a lot of prior, criminal activity, that sort of thing. And yeah, so one of the bombshells that came out in the opening statements was that, and body cam that was released during opening statements or the first day of testimony, is body cam from the officers when they arrived. And when officers first arrived, he had a pulse. Like, officers are on body cam checking his pulse, and he has a pulse.
Yeah.
So he's not, he's still alive when police first get there. The other thing I find interesting about this, it says from the dailymail.com, an article said from the time police received the dispatch call, it took 7 minutes for first responders to arrive. Okay. Which is interesting because in New York City, when you're on the subway, there is a lack of safety and control on the subway right now. It's a huge problem in New York City right now. So it took 7 minutes for police officers to respond. That seems a little longer than I would imagine response has been in the past. But New York City is down like everyone else when it comes to law enforcement. So it took police 7 minutes to get there, and then it was another 10 minutes before EMS arrived.
Right.
So, with the defibrillator and other resources and stuff. So I think that'll come into play too, regarding, time of death.
Public safety. The public safety.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and really that's a discussion we can have, is these types of incidents are going to happen more often as public safety, as first responder numbers, diminish because we're reimagining, safety.
A world without police.
Yeah, we're reimagining this
so much better.
And what this reimagining is doing is causing citizens to have to jump in and act, I think, more often than maybe in the past, because there aren't as many police officers around. There isn't as much of a presence. So yeah, I don't know what'll come out. The chokehold, that's a real big thing too. In police work, What's interesting to me about the chokehold is that you watch any UFC fight, the chokehold is used all the time in UFC fights. People think a chokehold is going to kill someone. A chokehold will not kill someone unless you literally block them from getting air for a certain amount of time. And most people who are trained with the chokehold know that it's just pressure on the side of the neck to
which blocks the blood flow to the brain, which
causes the person to pass out, to become unconscious. Now, if you continue to keep that pressure on and that literally block the airway and keep them from breathing, yes, you are going to kill someone. But the chokehold now is like, no point. You can't use that at all
unless deadly force
is authorized, which I think is dumb. I think that if you I do. I think it's dumb. It is a tool that people can use if you're trained to use it correctly. It is a tool you can use to put someone out and render them unconscious during a fight.
Right.
It's not deadly force. A chokehold in and of itself is not deadly force.
Right.
Can it become deadly force? Sure. But in and of itself, a actual chokehold is not going to kill someone.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with this case. I've heard there people are all over the place with how long he had this chokehold. I've heard 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 15 minutes.
Right.
So we don't really know how long he held the chokehold, or if the air supply was just cut off, or if he just, we don't, people are just assuming that, hey, he murdered this guy,
Yeah.
And he's charged with manslaughter.
Okay.
It's not murder. Daniel Penny's charged with manslaughter.
Yeah.
He was interviewed at the scene by police officers. He was released from the scene. He was not arrested. They took other witnesses. You said earlier there was other people in the train who called him a hero for stepping in. But it begs the question, like, what would you do? See, This is why I dislike going to large cities and riding subway. It is super stressful to me, especially if I have it. I think it's one thing if I'm by myself, which I'm not going to large cities by myself, but usually my family's with me. It is super stressful because this type of behavior, what do you do? Do you just ignore it? Do you just try to leave it? It's
do you wait until he actually
starts assaulting someone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he already threw a coat at someone. I mean, that's aggressive behavior. Like we should live in a society where you can ride the subway without someone throwing a coat at you.
Right.
And
or screaming at you and cursing
screaming
at you.
and threatening. I'm going to kill you. I'm prepared to go to jail for life.
Right.
I'm prepared to die. Like, obviously, this guy was suffering from some type of mental breakdown,
or drugs induced,
or both, or he's just an evil man.
Right.
At that moment, he decided to do something evil, or he was going to do something evil, and he was stopped.
Right.
We say this all the time. There's consequences for your actions, whether or not you're high or if you have mental problems. There are consequences for your actions.
Right.
And I mean, that's a question everybody has to ask themselves, especially men. Men, you should be asking yourself this question. What would I do in that situation? Am I prepared for that? Do I think about these things when I'm on the F train, or when I'm taking public transport, or I'm walking down the sidewalk, when I'm walking in Walmart, or I'm going to, the grocery store, I'm going to Chick-fil-A. Like,
right.
We're running into more people with mental illness, people being high on narcotics, and people being evil.
Right.
Like, that's happening. So, like, you have to prepare yourself. And if you wait for that moment, you don't know what you're going to do. But if you actually like think about it and kind of run scenarios in your head, what am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? Am I going to carry a knife? Am I going to carry, a gun? Am I going to, whatever you decide, like, you got to think through that. I think you have to think through this. What would you do?
Right.
And this guy, Penny, was trained. He knew how to defend himself and others.
Right.
And he's a military veteran who served his country well, and is riding a train, and somebody comes in threatening.
Right.
He saved other people's lives potentially.
Right.
But nobody's talking about that.
Yeah. No one wants to talk about that. They, again, the racial aspect of this is the only thing that our media and press wanted to bring up. The fact that Daniel Penny's
there
white,
were protests. There were
like protests.
Calls for
BLM,
his arrest.
Was involved, and calls for his arrest, and he was arrested, and now he's charged with manslaughter. And the question is, as the case continues, they'll present evidence. I guarantee you things about this case are going to come out in court that nobody knows about. I guarantee you a lot more is going to come out about the autopsy. And yeah, I guess for me, I'm just like, I don't even want to be in those situations anymore, because here, this guy tries to defend people, and now he's charged with a crime,
Right. A serious crime. I mean, he could face many years in prison for this.
Right. And for, if I'm in a type of situation like that, it's very hard for me to ignore that type of behavior. And every day you see videos of men ignoring behavior like this, like literally pretending it doesn't even exist.
Right.
Just keep my head down.
Don't make eye contact.
Mind my own business, not interact. And in some ways, I get it. But it's very hard. I don't know. It's very hard for me to ignore behavior like that. So I don't even want to be put in that situation, especially if my family's with me. Remember I think it was a couple years ago, I think it was a subway in New York City, a family, dad, kids, wife, and there was a guy screaming in the kids' faces and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there's videos all over the place. Yeah. There's videos all over the place.
I don't, oh man. Yeah. And I've had those moments where I've walked away from people. Like a couple years ago, me and my family were at the beach, and we're walking, and a bunch of drunk, high, homeless guys started making comments about my daughter, my wife. And I just kept it moving. Yeah. I was like, and I think you have to.
That's a different scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not stuck in a train.
I'm not exactly.
You're not stuck in a train.
That's a great point. I'm not confined. I can keep it moving and stuff. But, I was upset. And, I told Lauren, I said, if we come across them again on our way back, like, I'm having words.
Yeah.
Like, with them. They're not going to talk about you and my daughter, like that. Just vile stuff.
Yeah.
And so then Lauren's like, well, she's praying that we don't see him on the way back. But,
right.
But yeah, those I think you bring up a good point. One of the things you can take into consideration is can you move? Like, is the person literally hurting someone? Is it just words? Can you move away from the person? Can you get away from the person? Can other people get away from them? And in this case, yeah, they're on a train.
You can't go anywhere.
You can't go anywhere. Like, what are it's like being in a cage with a wild animal. Like, you have to do something to defend yourself.
Right.
And don't misquote. I'm not calling this guy an animal. I'm just saying
you're acting like an animal.
Acting like an animal.
It's not normal human behavior.
Right.
The way he acted on that train as has been described.
Right.
By witnesses and Penny.
Right.
Like, it's not normal behavior. It's abnormal. It's not the society that I think most Americans want to live in.
Yeah. And I think, there's some men who are going to act and there's some that aren't going to act. And I think for him to act and now be charged with manslaughter, I don't know. I think there's going to have to be a lot that comes out to get him convicted of manslaughter.
Yeah, I mean, and it depends on where you live too, right? Like, if that happens not that we have trains like where we live, but like if it's on public transportation in like Texas or Florida and this same incident happens, it's not going to be viewed the same, right? Someone's probably not going to get charged if it's literally the same circumstances. So depending on where you live, which is why people are fleeing New York City, which is why people are leaving all of these big urban areas who have become so pro
bad guy.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Pro bad
guy, or just
it's
ignoring social norms.
Yeah. It's more important the feelings, the outcome for the bad guy is more important than safety. It is the most important thing in a lot of these cities.
Yeah. Not behavior. It's not behavior that they're concerned with. It's feelings, it's their mental well-being. It's those kind of things. It's not the behavior. And that's unfortunate because behavior is, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Because behavior is like, that's the fruit of what's going on inside. You know what I mean? That's what shows. That's the showing of what's going on inside someone.
Right.
So it's crazy. I mean,
the politicians and leaders in a lot of these large cities, they literally do care more about bad guys than anyone else.
Which is crazy because the bad guy is the minority. Like, that is the reality. The bad guy is the 0.01% of society, right. But we care more. And shame on the public for agreeing with the politician or the leaders of these suburban areas and voting them in and supporting them and not speaking out. Like, New York City should be freaking out about the fact that this guy was charged. They should also be freaking out about the guy that there was a store owner who was robbed at gunpoint. He pulls out a gun that he has legally, shoots the guy. He winds up getting charged and arrested. Now, those charges got dropped, but that shouldn't even happen.
Right.
That shouldn't even happen. There should be outrage in the streets. That's something you should be outraged about, not on some guy behaving criminally.
Yeah.
And unfortunately dying as a result of his behavior.
Right.
I don't know.
And I think it's also important, like, Daniel Penny, the Marine in this case, probably has, obviously has a level of training. And I think his statement where he said he had to act, he had to intervene is good. Listen, you can see some people acting crazy and, it's just like, they're just blowing off steam. You're not going to take them seriously. But there was something about this guy that caused Daniel Penny to believe that he was a legitimate threat. Because I'm sure Penny had been on the subway numerous times in cars with people who were acting unbalanced or improperly or cursing or
suffering from a mental illness.
There's no way you can ride the subway on a regular basis in New York City and not see erratic behavior, possibly aggressive behavior. There's no way you can do that when you're riding the subway on a regular basis. But there was something about the way this guy was acting that caused Daniel Penny to step in and do something about it. And I think that's an important point to make too.
Yeah. And not only his behavior, his size. Daniel Penny, 6'1",
Right.
He says, now I don't know if this is true or not. Penny says that the deceased victim was larger than him. That's
Really?
a big person.
He didn't look bigger than him, but on video, but it's hard to tell on video.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
anyway, I mean, a larger person is a bigger threat than a tiny person. A tiny person isn't, like, you know what I mean? You're taking all these factors in it. Like there's all these factors. So he's a veteran. So he has some type of like moral compass. He has some type of like, that's been instilled in him by the government. Right. So he has his own character, which has been developed by the military. This is, I can't do this, dude. Like, it's non-stop.
I'm sorry.
You know how annoying this would be to listen to? Like,
I still have the
people
cough.
are going to turn this off and go back to election stuff because you're constantly coughing.
Now,
get a Ricola or something, dude.
A what?
Ricola. Like a throat lozenge.
Just complete your thought.
What was I saying?
Yelling at me.
So he has character to begin with. You're gonna do this every time I try to talk.
No, go ahead.
So he has this his own character, right? Which is from his family history. It's from who God has made him to be, and then it's developed by the military. He's a young guy.
Yeah,
I think he was in from 17 to 21 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he was out for 2 years or whatever, going to school. He's a college student.
Yeah,
and veteran. So he has these characteristics of a soldier that are developed over 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 4 years in the Marine Corps. So the government's developing for him to be a soldier. So like all of this has to be taken into account. Like
he has a high protection quotient. Like
and that was developed by the government.
Right.
So it's not only his own character, it's not just some random dude who a businessman who has never been involved with the government.
Right.
So this is I don't know, man. Like,
and I think what we're trying to get across is in these cases, there's so many factors.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things you have to take into consideration is there was a reason he chose to act in this situation.
He believed he had to act. He even said that.
Yeah. He believed he had to act. And in all these, people want to look at these and just be like, violence happened, bad.
Yeah.
And you can't.
Whoever did the violence is bad.
Right. There is righteous violence. And sometimes there's a call for righteous violence. This is what happened to me one time, Gary.
Well, hold on. It's almost like the person who won the violent act is the problem.
Right.
That's not always true. Just because you win doesn't mean you're the problem. Right. Danny Penny won. Right. Daniel Penny won. He won that violent interaction. He won it. That doesn't make him the bad guy.
Right.
Right. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I was saying there, but just because he won,
and he didn't, he believed he stayed on scene. He waited for the police to get there. Yeah. He gave them a statement.
Yeah.
He told them what happened.
I guess some people were mad because he wasn't doing CPR on him. Well, he thought he was still breathing. Right. His chest was rising and
he had a pulse when the cops got there.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and that's, I mean,
wait a minute. Can you have a pulse without breathing? Yeah. Yeah. You can.
Yeah, you can have.
I'm an idiot. I just did first aid. I should know this.
Yeah, you can have a pulse, and that has everything to do with like your blood cardiac arrest. Obviously, if you're not breathing, you're going to lose that pulse pretty fast. But yeah, if he's standing there, and the cops get there, and he still has a pulse, like he's not dead at that point.
Yeah.
Like,
and why is there not a defibrillator or a first aid kit on the subways? Like, why not?
Safety matters.
Shouldn't there be?
Right. And no one else was giving him CPR.
Yeah. Where are the police? Well, the police aren't there because you didn't want them.
Right.
You wanted to defund the police, which is what they did. So there's no police to be found. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
He had to act.
I do think in New York City, 7 minutes for police to get onto a subway seems like a long time.
If it just like the deceased victim got on the train right as it was leaving. So say it's a 5 minute. I don't even think they're 5 minutes, dude.
Yeah.
Between stops.
I got you.
So like even then, like there should be a police officer in the next.
Right.
At the stop,
at the next
right?
station.
So that's 5 minutes. I mean,
yeah.
What are we doing here?
I don't know. So this is what happened to me one time, Gary.
All right, tell me.
So my daughter was a baby. She was still being nursed, need diaper changed. We're on a trip to go camping with our family.
Camping trip with a newborn. Great idea.
Oh yeah. And we're in the middle of nowhere. And so we stop at a Sheetz so that Lauren can nurse and we can change her diaper.
Okay.
So we complete that task, and I am putting my daughter back into the car seat, the baby car seat, and strapping her in. And some dude walks up behind me. He has a hoodie on, his hood's up. And in the moment, afterwards thinking about it, I know why I reacted what I did. In the moment, it was pure reaction. Like I just saw these things and it didn't even register in the moment. But he comes up behind me and he says, "Hey, can I borrow your phone?" Like comes up right behind me while I'm putting her in. And I turned around and I said, "Get away from me right now." And I started like aggressively moving towards him.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Get away from me, get back." And I just started going on him. And Lauren's like, what is going on? Like, why is Anthony reacting like this? And so then he initially backs up and stuff. And then, the man thing kicks in and he starts like kind of bucking up to me. Like, what's your problem and everything. And so then I had a decision to make. I'm like, I don't want to get in a physical fight with this guy in this parking lot with my wife and daughter here. Like, so I kind of softened a little bit. I'm like, "Listen, man, I don't want any problems. I just need you to get to walk away from me. I just need you to go somewhere else. I'm not helping you with whatever you need help with. You just need to go somewhere else." And so like calming myself down and just being like, just asking him to leave me alone. He did. He walked away. So extremely, super aggressive reaction by me. And so we get back in the car and Lauren's like laughing nervously because she's like, "What just happened?
Who's this animal that
right.
I had a baby with?"
So she's like, she's like, she was totally on board with me. She's like, I was super uncomfortable with him too. Like I was super, he freaked me out too when he came up like that. And so then I started like processing, well, why did I act so aggressively? Like, well, first of all, I felt like I was cornered because I'm in a parking stall and this guy's now coming up behind me while I'm trying to get my daughter in. I'm also super, being super protective because I do have my small child there and my wife there.
And it's your first kid too.
And it's my first kid. And like, and then I started thinking, well, he walked up with his hood up. He had his hood pulled all the way up when he was talking to me. He asked me if he could borrow a phone, but he was actually holding a phone. Like all this stuff, like was, But
you didn't notice it in the moment.
I was purely reacting. And then afterwards, while I was thinking about why did I have such a strong reaction? What was it about him that caused me to have such a strong reaction? I started thinking about all these things. I'm like, he asked me to make a phone call, but he's holding a phone. And he also had one of his hands shoved in the center pocket of his sweatshirt that he was wearing of his hoodie. And I was like, okay, so now like all this stuff I saw immediately and just had a pure reaction to. But dude, I was ready to kill this guy. I didn't know what was going on. Like,
so you brought up some great points. We process, especially police officers or those who are trained, we process things different than the normal person.
Right.
Right. So you didn't even realize you saw him with the phone, that you saw his hand in his hoodie. And you noticed that his hood was up.
Right.
And that doesn't like that in and of itself doesn't mean anything. His hood up doesn't mean anything. What I'm saying, it's all of those things you processed in a moment.
Right.
You know what I mean? You processed, in a split second, you saw all those things. You don't even know you saw them until you could think about it later on when the stress is gone. But you reacted because you saw all those things and you know what happens, what could happen.
Right.
With all of those things, with all of those like instantaneous things that you saw.
Yeah.
So you actually observed them, but you didn't really know you did. Subconsciously, you reacted because of it.
Right.
And then you're able to process. So that's literally being a police officer, a good one.
Right. And I think,
or military person, or someone deals with high stress situation, a fighter. They see the twitches, right? They see like muscle. I think they do this. They see like muscle movements, or they see someone move their shoulders a certain way, and they know what's going to happen next because they've seen it 1,000 times.
Right.
So like, and listen, like people get spun up about, why do you react to people who have a hoodie up? I'm telling you, when I'm walking on a sidewalk and someone has a hood like really tightly over their face, I almost instantly like my spidey senses go up.
Right.
The hair on the back of my neck. I mean, I don't have hair on the back of my neck because I'm bald, but like that stuff happens because why do people hide their faces, right?
Right.
It doesn't mean they are. It just means that's one indicator that they may be a threat.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah,
they probably, maybe they're a great person. Maybe he's a real nice guy, but like it's that initial like indicator of potential violence.
Right.
So like, why are we talking about this? Oh,
Well,
you're just telling a story, but yeah, that's interesting. So, and we're also saying that Penny had those same things happen.
Right.
Something caused him to act like that. These
Right.
indicators.
We want to make it. We want to water the story down into just, a guy acted a certain way, a guy intervened, and a guy died. Like there's so much more to the story. There's so much more going on in Daniel Penny's head. That's what we're trying to get at. And I think, I think office, people in law enforcement, military, they maybe can do a better job articulating those things or recognizing them faster. But I think all people have that like that spidey sense, if you want to call it that. So, years ago I read a book called Gift of Fear.
Yep.
I don't remember who the author is, but Lauren and I have talked about this often. I tell her as a woman, never downplay your intuition about
that feeling you get, that weird sixth sense
when when you're around someone. And what's interesting in this book, Gift of Fear, they interview most of them. I think maybe all the people they interviewed were women who had been assaulted, whether physically assaulted or raped.
Right.
And these women all said they felt uncomfortable in the moment, but didn't know why they felt uncomfortable. So because they felt uncomfortable around the male, they felt bad for feeling uncomfortable because they were picking up on things that years down the road, upon being interviewed and giving very specific step-by-step things that happen, they were able to realize, things they saw, things that they picked up on. I wish I could remember an example. I know one woman was a woman who was on an elevator and a man got on the elevator and immediately she was extremely uncomfortable, but she didn't want to be rude and just get off the elevator as soon as he got on or stop, pick a different floor and get off right away. She felt like that would be rude.
Right.
But when she then talked to the author of this book and gave the interview and gave step-by-step, details about what happened, she started realizing all these little things that were tick, 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 ticking off in her brain subconsciously that were causing her to feel uncomfortable. So I think a lot of times, I always tell Lauren this out, I tell female friends of ours, like if you have that feeling, and this goes for a man too, if you have that feeling, that intuition, like don't ignore it because usually it's backed up by things you're observing subconsciously that you're not even maybe aware of.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
Yeah. So,
and listen, you might be wrong and you might be rude, but that might cause you to not be assaulted.
Yeah.
So like, listen, man, we live in a crazy world, you know what I mean? Full of sinners who some people are predators. And like, you might judge somebody the wrong way, but that's better than being assaulted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can always apologize, right? If down and it might be a stranger that you never see again, or it might be someone you become friends with, but like that's human interaction and it's a God-given gift.
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. It really is. So moving along, we're talking about the Daniel Penny case, but this case out of Texas, or this video out of Texas.
So it's again, what would you do? Or
for this one, it's like as an officer, I think, what would you do? With the Penny case, it's as a civilian, what would you do? But this one, so there's a drunk guy. He looks like he's drunk. He's on top of a roof, like an overhang roof at a bar in Texas, and the police get there, and there's like 4 or 5 of them that get up on this roof to try to take this guy in custody. And we're talking this overhang roof is
like
is maybe
3 feet wide, 4 feet wide, maybe.
Yeah, I would say like 3-4 feet wide. So they're up there
and long. So it goes like it runs the front of the bar,
front of the whole building. Yeah. And so they get up there, and this guy who's shirtless, the officers get up there, and he starts advancing on them like he's gonna like punch.
Yeah,
the
so there's
first
like
officer
four
in line.
officers. Like it's
Yeah.
super funny looking. Like the four officers are on the catwalk also with him,
Right.
the elevated catwalk. And this guy, like, he's like dukes it. He puts his fists up. He's like,
Yeah,
I'm
and
ready to duke it out.
He's built.
Yeah, he looks like he's ready to fight.
He's ready. Yeah, his shirt's off. Like,
So the officers are moving forward, and then the guy starts backing him down. The officers like are backing up
right
on this thing, and they go around the corner.
Yeah. So and the video ends. So you don't see how it ends. I tried to find out if this guy got arrested,
Right.
how it ended. I couldn't find anything on this. But I'm watching this and I'm like, right now in law enforcement, those officers literally, and help me out here. I was like, there's no option for them. They're not allowed to tase him because he might fall off.
Right, because he's in an elevated position.
They can't pepper spray him because he might fall off.
They can't fight him.
They can't fight him
because he might fall. They might fall off.
What? I'm like, how do you
wait it out? I guess.
I literally was just watching this. I was like, what would you do as a police officer? What are you just gonna like pull up a chair and wait till he comes down?
What do you do? Wait it out, and then if you wait
hours?
too long, he passes out because he's drunk
right.
and falls off. So like it's a lose no matter what you do almost.
Yeah. Here's what they should be able to do. They should be able to tase him. They should be able to pepper spray him. No officer up there deserves taking the chance of falling off. And it was probably 10 feet up.
Yeah, a story.
Yeah. So if you fell and you landed wrong, you could really hurt yourself and or die.
Right.
If you landed wrong. My thing is no, you tase that guy. I literally don't care.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. No officer, you can't because they're in an elevated position. But I'm so tired of us being so worried about the suspect in these cases.
Or do you just walk away? He's not going to hurt anybody but himself.
But here's the thing. If you walk away and he falls off, it's on
then
you.
It's on you, yeah.
You have to do something.
I guess.
You have to do something.
Yeah.
Or you bring a dog up and you just bite him.
Oh my goodness, Anthony.
But seriously,
because in reality, what is it? It's disturbing the peace. It's a trespass, maybe because the bar owner probably doesn't want him there, right?
I get it. Low level crime. You're looking at maybe disorderly conduct, criminal mischief, trespassing, low level stuff. But the police are called to handle it, and literally they're not allowed to handle it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what do? You give a ton of warnings, maybe, so you show that you're patient before you tase him, before you spray him. Be like, listen, if you don't, I mean, you know what I mean? Try to basically, talk to him, de-escalate the situation, maybe. I mean.
You look at that guy, there was no de-escalating him.
I do want to know how that ended.
They
waited him out. I'm sure they waited him. They waited him.
But what if you work for a place that you don't have the manpower or time to wait him out?
And why should the resources of the public be used for this one absolute buffoon acting like an idiot?
Yeah.
So you're wasting 6 cops' time for hours waiting for this idiot to come off the roof.
Right.
I mean, I guess
maybe
that's what the public wants us to do. I don't know.
And then if you're an officer and you just leave, if you're like, oh, there's nothing we can do, sorry. First of all, you haven't helped that business at all. You haven't helped you haven't helped the situation at all. You've just came and said, we can't do anything about it. You leave.
And you've empowered the criminal element because they see it and now they're like, well, okay, what else can I do?
Right.
Or I can at least do this. What else can I do? I can do something else.
Right. I just was flabbergasted because I was literally thinking, I've been thinking about it. I'm like, how would you, what are you going to do? Like there are no options for cops in that situation.
You call a supervisor and say, hey, I'd like to tase this guy. Can I tase this guy? And if he says yes, then you're good.
Yeah.
I mean, you still might get sued or whatever, but
try to
pass the buck.
Try to find something that you can put below that he would land in.
Yeah, call the fire department or
go to Walmart and buy a bunch of feather pillows or something. I'm just like, just tase a guy. If he falls off the roof,
we'll clean him up.
Pick him up, get him. I don't know. I guess I'm.
Yeah, that's funny. Are you gonna put that video in the show?
Yeah,
because it's funny.
I guess.
What it is like.
Video.
I mean, if you're a police officer, what do you do? We've been so hogtied in not we. I mean, I'm not a real cop anymore, but we've been so hogtied into not being able to act
Well, and it's a perfect, like I get it. You don't want to tase someone or pepper spray them from an elevated position. They might get hurt. I understand the spirit behind it. My thing is, why do we care so much if a suspect gets hurt? Like, why do we care? Like, if a suspect has chosen to break the law and do a crime, why do we care more about them getting hurt than the public around or the victims? Like,
I could see this. I could see in this instance, I could see getting on a bullhorn so everybody hears you. Hey, you without your shirt on, you need to come down. I'm not coming down. If you choose to not come down, you're going to be tased. And there's a potential that you fall off the roof. I'm telling you this. There's a potential you fall off the roof, or I'm going to pepper spray. There's a potential you fall off the roof. If you fall off the roof, that's on you. You know what I mean? So this is probably how I would play it.
That's on you, yeah.
That's on you. I'm telling you, we don't want to tase you. We don't want to pepper spray you. We want you to come off the roof because the business doesn't want you here anymore. If you choose to not do that, that is what's going to happen. We're going to tase you. You might fall on the flat part of the roof, and then we're going to walk up slowly to you, and we're going to handcuff you, but we're going to be real careful because we're not going to fall off the roof. It's so silly, but I think that's what you do.
And you tell them straight up,
you make sure
are under arrest.
Everybody hears you. You're under arrest at this point.
You are under arrest.
You're under arrest. Yep.
And
because you failed to come off the roof.
Right. And yeah, no, I think I totally agree with all that stuff. Give them a chance, give all those orders, but at some point you have to solve the problem.
Act. You have to act. And that's the point of what we're talking about. You have to do something. They backed up.
And we don't know.
And I think that's probably the right thing because that was not looking pretty because he was ready to fight him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that was the right move, but they realized they can't tase him. They can't pepper spray him. They can't fight him.
Right.
We got to do something else.
Yeah. We have to, the proportionality. We have to, our force needs to be proportionate to, and the whole reason you get the taser, I think I've talked about this before. It's like a paperweight on my belt now because I can't use it for anything, and then if I do want to use it, I have to like tick off a checklist of, is the person, are they on pavement? Are they on grass? What's the crime they committed? Is it a felony? Is it a misdemeanor? Is it a summary? And you have to like decide.
Do they have a lighter in their chest pocket that might light up on fire?
Yeah. Well, I don't care about it. That's on you. I'm not worried about what's in your pockets. Gary,
because that happened to you because you tased a guy and he lit on fire.
Yeah, Gary's talking about a guy he tased one time in the probe. Yeah, the probe
hit the lighter, right?
Yeah, hit the lighter, and there was like this little like fireball in his lap for a little bit. It was wild. He was fine.
Yeah,
he didn't have any burns or anything.
Yeah.
And what was really odd about that is he was in the middle of a mental health crisis and like schizophrenic and everything. After he got tased and had a little fireball in his lap, you couldn't tell he had mental health problems. It was like normal.
Woke him right up.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Actually, I have a lot of thoughts about that, but I'm going to save them.
Yeah. So this is a what would you do episode. What would you do?
That's what it seems like it is, man. It's good planning. That's great show prep.
You have to think about these things.
You're a professional.
I'm not a professional, but you have to think about these things. So the last one, this is not as much of a what would you do. I mean, we can say, what would have the officer done in this situation? I'm talking about this situation in Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago's back.
Chicago
should always be on this show, man. There is so much crazy stuff happening there. So I would never be a police officer in Chicago. I'm just telling you that right now. Ever.
You couldn't pay me enough to be a police officer in Chicago or New York City.
No. To actually do the work of a police officer. To be a police officer is one thing. To actually police in Chicago would be impossible. I'm saying at this point it's impossible to be a police officer. It's impossible to police in Chicago right now.
Effectively, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I mean by police. Like, I mean, being a police officer is one thing. Policing is another.
But this case is crazy.
All right, tell us about
it. I saw this from Caliber Press. This article came from Caliber Press. On April 15th, 2023, I'm reading from this article, Chicago police officer Fernando Ruiz and other officers encountered a group of men that included 24-year-old suspect name, which I'm not going to name him, in a high crime area frequented by gang members. Upon seeing the officers, the suspect began walking away, which caused the officers to become suspicious As they continued their approach, suspect fled on foot into a backyard and into like a gangway, foot alley type area running alongside the house. Finding the foot alley blocked, he quickly turned and ran toward the officers while pulling a handgun from his waistband and pointed towards the officers. So Officer Fernando Ruiz shot this guy, shot and killed him.
Yep.
All right. Justified use of force. I mean, you can't get much clearer justified deadly shooting by a police officer than this case.
And it's all on body cam.
It's all on body cam. There's actually in this article, which I'll also put in the episode notes, there's actually a picture of the suspect coming back out straight at the officer with a handgun that he just pulled out of his waistband. He's holding it down in front of like his groin area. Like that, there's no clearer,
right?
You know, what would you do? Every normal person would be like, this is a deadly force situation.
Every police officer would shoot that man.
Yeah. You need to use deadly force.
So he has two options, right? This guy has two options. I can surrender because it's dead end, right? So he runs down this small foot alley with the officers behind him. I can surrender or I can fight them.
Right.
i.e. shoot them.
Right.
That's literally his two choices.
Yeah.
And he chose to run at the officer.
He chose to run at the officer and pull
his gun out.
Right. And his family is saying that he wasn't given a chance to surrender.
They didn't de-escalate the situation. Right?
They did de-escalate the situation, and it was the use of deadly force.
It was
unfortunately.
it was an effective de-escalation.
So Officer Ruiz goes home. Everybody goes home. No officers are injured. Bad guy passes away. More than a year, again from the article here, more than a year after the incident, an investigation by the Chicago Office of Police Accountability, our friends over at COPA.
Oh, COPA.
Decided that Officer Ruiz violated policies to the extent that he needed to be terminated.
Yep.
Essentially losing both his livelihood and profession, not because the shooting of the suspect was unjustified, but because they determined that the short foot chase was unjustified and in defiance of police policy. They also concluded that Ruiz failed to notify the Office of Emergency Management and Communications of the pursuit. We're talking like seconds. Failed to activate his body camera soon enough, and failed to use de-escalation techniques prior to his resorting to deadly force. So COPA is saying shooting's justified, but they're mad because suspect died, and we care more about suspects. So how can we bury this officer? And well, he violated some policies. So in this very short foot pursuit.
I mean, it's like 7 seconds, right?
Yeah, it's like super short foot pursuit. He forgets to turn his body cam on.
And to radio it in.
And he doesn't radio it in, which is silly. He has there's a whole team of these officers together. He has his backup that he needs. His body cam is activated, I believe, when he pulls his weapon. I think that's probably why his body cam activated, because it was automatic turn on when you pull your weapon. But he forgot to turn it on earlier.
Right, because he actually, the shooting happens and then you see him click the button like on his chest, but it's already recording.
Okay.
It's already recording because he had pulled his gun, but he double taps, which is how you turn on your body cam.
Or maybe they don't have the automatic turn on, and when he clicked it on,
it went back
30 seconds to show.
Either way, he still activated his body camera.
He still remember. I mean, it's crazy.
You're supposed to remember to grab your radio, talk on your radio about what's happening. You're supposed to remember to click the double click your little thing on your chest before you go chase this guy. So
Officer Ruiz is a machine. Like this officer is so squared away. You're coming up to a group of what you believe are gang members. You're observing suspicious activity. One tries to walk away from the group. This is classic police work.
It's great police work.
It's awesome police work. You decide to engage with the person who's walking away. That turns into a foot pursuit. And that turns into him pulling a handgun from his waistband and you deploying deadly force. And COPA's worried because you didn't put it out on the radio and you didn't turn on your body camera fast enough, and you engaged in a foot pursuit that probably violated Chicago policy. which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
The Chicago foot pursuit policy, pretty much every foot pursuit you would get into would violate policy. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah. You're not supposed to police. That's what they want.
You're literally putting yokes on these guys that it doesn't matter what they do. They are going to violate rules and regulations that you put on them, so that then you can like just house them down the road. If you're like, oh, they used appropriate force, but he violated this policy, let's terminate him. Are you kidding me?
Right.
These are like minute, stupid, like policy.
Yeah, here's what if you're going to do anything, you give him a written reprimand or you give him a verbal reprimand because he violated policies. But I wouldn't even do that. I'm just saying, like, the policies need to go, but they're there. So like, the problem is it's not real police leadership anymore in Chicago, at least.
Well, at least the commissioner's standing up for him and is like, no, this guy shouldn't get fired.
Right,
so it's ongoing. They want to give him like 2-day suspension, which
right,
I also think is crazy.
Because you have the police department and then you have this COPA organization, which is civilians, right?
Yeah.
And they're dueling bureaucrats, right?
I mean, they make recommendations for officers. Like if you go on COPA's website, you can pull up investigations they're doing. It's separate from the police department, and then they tell the police department, you need to do this to this guy. You need to do this. New York City has the same thing. It's a bunch of people who, many of them hate the police,
right? Can't
stand the police,
which is how they get into this agency,
right? And they, and many of these people love the suspects, and they just want to figure out ways to mess with cops.
Yeah, and when we say they hate police, we mean they hate policing, the way that policing is to be done. They want to reimagine it,
right?
That you're just there and you don't do anything, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
then if you don't do anything, then you're a problem too. So it's a lose-lose. It's not even possible to police in areas like this.
It's wild to me that you can be so thick-headed to believe you're defunding the police, reimagining the police, and then you wring your hands at the rising crime levels, and you can't connect that dot. Oh, you know what? Maybe us reimagining the police and defunding the police, maybe that has something to do with the out of control crime and me now being a victim of assault. You see these politicians, they're like victims of carjackings, assaults, and they're like, oh, we need to do something about this. You're the person who shut it down. Yeah. You're the person who took it over.
Yeah, you're the reason this is happening, idiot. Yeah, exactly. It's
crazy to me.
Although the FBI said that there was no rise in crime, and then they had to walk that back, didn't they?
How crazy is that?
Look at the timing of that is absolutely unreal to me.
You're called out and then you come back, you're like, oh no, our figures were wrong. Yeah, crime is up more than what we originally said.
Right.
How shady is that? So according to Chicago PD policy, which you can find on their website, again from this article, de-escalation, department members are required to use. So now the author of this article, who's Jim Glennon. Yeah, I just want to make sure it was Jim. He breaks down the policy violation. So he's like, de-escalation. Department members this is right from their policy, Chicago PD policy. Department members are required to use de-escalation techniques to prevent or reduce the need for force unless doing so would place a person or department member in immediate risk of harm, or de-escalation techniques would be clearly ineffective under the circumstances at the time. First of all, what are these de-escalation techniques, these magical de-escalation techniques that you think would work on a gang member who's running from you and pulling a gun from his waistband? Like what magical...
Running toward you, pulling a gun out.
Right. Running from you and then running toward you, pulling a gun out. Like what's this magical de-escalation pixie dust that we're going to sprinkle on this situation?
Sir, I'm here for your mental health.
Solve this problem. Like, so they're saying he violated this.
I know. I think he followed it, but hey, that's just me.
It's that was the de-escalation in the moment. And I guess, what I'd want to ask the COPA members is what would you want this officer to do?
Yeah. Give me an example of how you would do
this. Explain to me how you would de-escalate a gang member who is running at you and pulling a handgun. Like, what are you going to do in that moment to not have that end badly?
And then when they explain it to you, then I would say, okay, let's do it. And I'll be the gang member and you be the police officer, and let's see how this works out.
Right.
and I would mow that dude over.
Right.
I would, first of all, I'd probably fill him with lead, with paintballs.
Right.
All right. I would paintball him up. I would knock him over, probably throw some punches at him and take off running. That's what I would do. Because that's what happens, right? Like you're talking, normally it's with a knife, it's what, 21 feet.
Mm-hmm.
If your gun's in your holster, this guy had it, the officer had his gun in, but he had zero time to do anything but fire rounds at him.
Right.
You couldn't do anything.
Right. And here's the thing, probably at the beginning of the foot pursuit, he probably was de-escalating. He probably was saying stuff like, police, stop.
Right.
You know, that's de-escalation.
It is.
That's you're starting out at verbal commands.
Well, you're there, first of all.
Right. Your officer presence, there's your de-escalation. Your verbal directives, there's your de-escalation. Nope, not good enough. It's just like, bad guy was killed, so now we must punish the officer.
Yeah.
What bad guy did doesn't matter.
Right.
So going on.
So that was one. That's hilarious. So he followed that policy according to Anthony.
It appears that according to us, he followed the policy. According to the body cam video, from the moment the foot chase started to the shots being fired, 10 seconds elapsed, like we were talking about.
So fast.
10 seconds.
So fast.
And Jim Glennon says, what de-escalation techniques exactly should have been employed by the officers in the pursuit? Which one would have guaranteed compliance? The board will never have to answer these questions. He's exactly right. They don't have to answer the questions. They just make these ridiculous things. So why did this chase violate the policy? Again, according to Chicago PD, a foot pursuit is an event. It's an event. No, in which a sworn department member on foot chases a subject who is fleeing on foot to resist apprehension for suspected criminal activity. Okay, that's their definition of foot pursuit. When can they be initiated and or what are the restrictions? As it pertains to the decision to pursue, the policy is pretty clear. Department members may engage in a foot pursuit with subjects only when they have reasonable articulable suspicion to believe that the suspect has committed, is committing, or is about to commit a crime, or probable cause to substantiate an arrest, and the subject flees. Oh man, they messed up. They violated Chicago's foot pursuit policy. Department members may not engage in a foot pursuit based solely on a person's response to the presence of the police, including a person's attempt to avoid contact with the department member, i.e. walking away, declining to talk, running away, or crossing the street to avoid contact. People may avoid contact with department members for many reasons other than involvement in criminal activity. Well, in this case, it was criminal activity. So the officers knew exactly what was going on, but because they didn't have articulable facts, because there wasn't probable cause.
Or not enough. Like articulable facts are high crime area, known gang area. Those are two articulable facts.
Mm-hmm. But
and walking away at the presence of a police officer.
But that they can't chase for that. You walk up to a group of gang members and one of them walks away.
You can't do anything.
Can't do anything. You have to get really, I don't know, maybe he stepped into the street. Now he's jaywalking. Now he's doing something. I'm stopping him for jaywalking. I don't know.
The trespassing.
Yeah.
He walked into someone else's property.
Yeah. We were not engaged in a foot pursuit with him. We were following at a safe distance, and he trespassed on someone's property. We'll play your stupid little games, Koba.
Which led us to follow him at a chase speed of foot.
Yeah, we were not chasing him. We were performing surveillance.
Yeah,
we were performing
quick surveillance with our feet
at sprint speeds.
Unreal, dude. This is unreal to me.
So as of this,
so it looks like he definitely violated that policy. Like, I'm not saying he did anything wrong. I'm just saying he violated this policy.
He violated Chicago's foot pursuit policy.
Which literally, I think almost every foot pursuit I've been in would be a violation of this policy.
Many of the foot pursuits.
A lot of times I saw hand to hand. So like, I can't say.
Yeah. Or, the person's wanted or something like that. But no, there's been many foot pursuits I've been involved in that, I would have got in trouble.
Yeah.
As of this writing, Jim Glennon goes on to say, as of this writing, according to heyjackass.com, that's an actual website that tracks crime in Chicago. I went on the website.
Yeah.
Super interesting website.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know why they call it heyjackass.com, but
it's got a great name.
Yeah. Chicago. So as of this writing, Jim Glennon says, the website says Chicago has experienced 515 murders and over 2,580 people have been shot this year. Drive-by shootings are a daily occurrence. The vast majority of victims are from the black community. In contrast, the police have shot 8 people this year in Chicago, 3 of them fatally. Think about that. Think about the level of violent crime in Chicago, and the police have only shot 8 people, 3 of them fatally, one of them being the suspect in this case. The police are designed to be proactive to prevent violence before it starts. To do that, they need to engage the public to be seen, and when legally acceptable, utilize stop and frisk tech established in the Terry versus Ohio case, which every reason to stop and check this guy, stop and frisk him. But since more police-citizen encounters, especially in high-crime violent areas, raises the odds of violent confrontations, many high-ranking decision-makers have determined that restricting police practices will reduce those odds. Multiple jurisdictions have taken more drastic steps, like restricting officers from making traffic stops for equipment violations, no longer arresting shoplifters, ignoring prostitution, drug dealing, jaywalking, vandalism, and refusal to prosecute those resisting arrest. The list goes on. So this is where we're at. This is where Chicago's at. Really hope that Officer Ruiz does not get fired. As of right now, Officer Ruiz, Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling disagreed with COPA's recommendations. Well, at least he disagreed with them that the officer should be fired. He only agreed that Ruiz violated policy concerning the body camera and failure to notify dispatch of the chase. He recommended a 2-day suspension. The president of the Chicago Police Board, Mr. Kyle Cooper, has decided 18 months after the incident to side with the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, who recommended termination and dismissal of Officer Ruiz from the department over the counter.
Who was that?
The president of the Chicago Police Board. The president of their board, of their association.
Agreed with COPA.
Yeah. 18 months after the incident.
Who voted him in? The association, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, it says the Chicago Police Board, so I'm assuming that's like their association. They're like, bargaining.
No way, dude.
That's what the article, I'm just reading what the article says. Over the objection of Chicago's top cop, a police officer now faces dismissal for fatally shooting a man who was holding a handgun after a foot pursuit.
While running at him.
Ruiz has a few more options, a hearing before the full police board, or he can go to arbitration. So he's going to be fighting this
for months.
It's disgusting.
Yeah,
it's
terrible,
disgusting.
Dude.
Like, and it goes right back to what you were saying. How could you be a cop in Chicago? Like, if you saw what Officer Ruiz did, you're like, dude, you're literally playing Russian roulette with your life, your freedom.
If you're going to police, if you're a policeman, you could probably work in Chicago.
But even if you aren't going to engage in proactive policing,
don't do anything, dude. Just disappear. That happens. You could do that.
I know, but you're a call away. Even if you're not going to do anything proactive,
don't go to it.
You're
dude.
A call away.
I'm not saying you're good. I'm just saying, like,
don't.
That's what you want to be.
I get. But what's the point then?
I don't know.
What is the point?
There is no point. That's the point. They've ruined policing in Chicago. They've ruined it.
It's reimagined.
No, it's ruined policing.
Right.
It's crazy, dude. I feel for that officer, man.
So Officer Ruiz will hopefully...
He's a person of color, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And the suspect, looked like he was either Latino or black as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, they couldn't bring the race thing into it. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I wonder if it was a white officer, would they charge him?
Everything is like, why is everything?
I know
broken down in race,
and it shouldn't be. Why,
dude? It's more. When I was in, there is more racial like divisiveness now than when did that start?
I don't know, dude.
Obama.
That's what I was going to say, but I didn't want to say it.
When Obama.
You're so brave, Anthony.
Dude, it was Obama.
I think it was. I think he was one of the most divisive presidents we've ever had.
When you from behind the presidential seal were convicting police officers with your words and saying such ridiculous things like, if I had a son,
right?
It would be, what was that kid's name? It just escaped me. But yeah, if I had a son, he would look like him. Calling officers out. Like, he was the first president I saw, like, literally standing behind the presidential seal and calling police out for doing their job. Like, within... Like,
individual incidents, too.
Yes.
Like, that was crazy.
Like, calling out, specific officers who... within like days of them, using force, using deadly force, calling those officers out by name, calling their actions unjustified, unrighteous, before he doesn't even know what happened.
Right.
It's just like he was the first president I saw do that. And you know what's wild to me about that whole thing?
Tell me.
You are a African American man who's the president of the United States, and you want to stand behind the presidential seal and talk about the level of racism in the country. You're the president.
Yeah. Right. You made it. I mean, if that's the point.
If you can be the president, and let's face it, Obama is an excellent speaker.
Phenomenal
speaker. Yeah. He has a way with words, and I think it's one of the main reasons he got elected, because he campaigned very well,
and he's super likable,
charismatic. People like him, and you. But you're a black man in America, and you're the president of the United States, and yet you stand behind the presidential seal and you say the country is racist.
Yeah,
that's crazy to me. I don't understand that.
The country's racist, and specifically police officers and the police system is
filled with racism. Yeah. And
it's just not true. It's not true.
It's not
I've met
true.
So many cops from all over the country. I've never met one racist cop.
Yeah,
I've never met one.
Yeah. And like we've talked about before, I'm sure there are racist cops out there. They're, like any profession.
There's racists in America, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. But even if you do have racist cops, those cops are doing their best not to show that racism, because they'll lose their job in a heartbeat, as they should.
Yeah, they should.
If you're a racist cop, you should be fired. You should
if you
not
act
be in
on
the
those
profession.
racist ideologies, you should be fired.
Yeah, 100%. So even if you have racist cops and they're doing their very, very best to behave and not portray any racist type behavior, because they know they're going to lose their job over it. And I think in that interview with John Mattingly, he talks about that. We talked about race and policing a little bit, and we were talking about how wild it is that he was called a racist because Breonna Taylor, died, and she was black.
Right.
So he's a racist. And he's like, what's crazy to me is I grew up in this community. He's like, why as a white male, if I'm a racist, would I go to work and help people of color on every single shift, respond to their calls for help, work in their communities, try to make their communities safer? And now you're calling me a racist?
Right.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And I do think it started with Obama. I do think like the divisive racial rhetoric started with him.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with Officer Ruiz. Hopefully he will not lose his job.
Yeah. We're rooting for you. I'm sure he's listening to this, so.
No, he's not. No one's listening to this. Well,
dude, everybody's tuned into the election, man.
Yeah.
Well, this will give people a break from, even if they don't listen to it tonight when this drops on election day.
It drops in the morning.
I know, but even if they don't listen to it, like today on election day,
okay,
this will give them some reprieve from whatever chaos ensues, however this election goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can listen to me hacking into the mic.
Dude,
why do you get so mad about that? Like, I can't control it.
It's just brutal, though. So, like, I just want you to control yourself. That's all.
I can't. It's still.
I mean, you say you can't, but like, you can.
So you're one of those people.
You can do.
So when your wife,
you can do anything you put your mind to, Anthony. Whatever dream you have,
follow your heart.
Follow your heart. Just listen to the voice inside you and stop coughing. Here you go again.
Every time my kids hear that statement, "Follow your heart," they're like, "Wrong! Don't follow your heart.
Your heart is wicked above all things."
Yeah, I love it.
So, oh man, dude, that was fun. This was a fun episode.
No, don't. Like, I still am trying to train you.
How many potential?
I'm still trying to train you not.
Dude,
to
has
do
your
this at the
phone
end
been
of
blowing
episodes.
up with like ads, political ads? I think everybody's is, right?
My phone?
Yeah, your
Like
phone.
text
Like, you get
messages?
text messages and calls.
You don't get any text messages.
Mm-mm.
My work phone, I get inundated
Really?
with text messages.
Interesting.
It's super annoying.
It's a government phone.
Yeah, it's weird. My personal phone does too, but it's probably a third.
I don't get any.
You don't get any at all.
No, I get scam calls all the time.
Okay.
I have this one company.
But you don't answer them. Do you answer them?
Well, I had this one company that calls me all the time. I think I finally got them to stop because they're saying that they need to help me get out of my timeshare. I don't have a timeshare.
Oh.
So they literally, they will call me. They'll call me like 3 times in a row.
Okay.
All right. I swear some of these places know like when you on your phone, because a lot of times like I'll get on my phone to do something and boom, I'll get a scam call.
Oh man, they're watching.
So this company for like a month, they would call me over and over and over and over and over again. And I would block number and then they use a different number. And so I finally answered, and this lady's like talking to me about, she just right away goes into it. I was like, stop. I don't have a timeshare.
Yeah.
Do not call me anymore. And she like keeps talking over me. So like I start yelling at her. I'm like, stop calling me. I'm like, I don't have a timeshare. I'll report you to Better Business Bureau. Like they care.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm so tired of you calling me. Stop calling me. She just kept talking.
Do you think it was a real person or was it AI?
I think it was a real person.
Really?
Yeah.
I bet it
think
was
a real
AI.
person. I don't know. Hopefully AI can take
Like,
out
did
all
she
my
even
hacking.
pause when you're yelling?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it seemed like a normal
I don't think
conversation,
it was
spoken.
AI, but yeah. There's so many scams out there, and some of them like sound really, really good. A lot of times, if I answer the phone and it's a phone number I don't know, I don't say one word. I wait for them to talk, because I've heard things like they're recording people. Like if they say, "Hi, is this Anthony Weaver?" and you say yes, they'll like record your voice and like try to get you to say your name and like all this stuff. So I just answer the phone, complete silence. I wait for them to say something.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I never answer my phone if I don't know the number, ever. There's never been a time I can't think of. Like recently.
Sometimes I'm waiting on a phone call, so I think it's the person who's calling me back. I normally don't.
Okay.
I normally don't answer at all. But there's some, and we're taking a lot of like scam calls. People, and sextortion is a big thing right now too.
What do you mean?
People sending pics of body parts of their genitalia to people who they think they know, they've met online.
Okay.
And then the person turns around and sends them like screenshots of their social media and says, if you don't give me money, I'm going to let your whole family, I'm going to send this to your whole famlie. So now there's a crime. That's a actual crime in Pennsylvania.
It is.
Here's my personal opinion. It shouldn't be a crime. if you're that person, and you want to take pictures of your genitalia and send them to someone that you don't know, and then they turn around and try to get money from you, natural consequence. So I'm sorry.
I had an investigation where a dude met a person online, and it wound up going to a FaceTime call.
Okay.
And basically the other side recorded the FaceTime call, and instead of it being the adult female on the other end, they like manipulated the video to where it was child porn.
Oh, wow.
Which was wild, right? So imagine that. Like, you think you're talking to an adult, which you are. You're talking to an adult and doing whatever you're doing sexually,
right,
over the phone. They're recording it, so they get your side, what's actually happening, and then imposing child pornography in it
to make it look like you,
and then sending that out to him.
Yeah.
Saying, I have all your contacts. I know where your daughter goes to school, and you email that to where they go to school, like the administrators.
Right.
You email to you find out from LinkedIn or whatever where they work.
Did this suspect actually email this stuff out?
Yeah.
To other people?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it came back to the Ivory Coast. So, there's nothing you could do. But,
right.
Yeah. And these people will say, if you're like a important person, or like you really don't want people to know that this happened, even though it wasn't child pornography.
Yeah, even though
he didn't do child pornography, but
gotcha.
But imagine that. Like, so then they request money, and this guy sent a bunch of money to him, thinking that it would stop, but it never stops.
Right.
So it's brutal.
Yeah.
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 I suggest
that's
don't.
Yeah. Don't. Yeah. get married. And
I mean,
deal with
you're
your
an
wife.
adult. You can do what you want, but like, I mean, it doesn't make it right, and there might be consequences for what you do, right?
Yeah, natural consequences. I mean,
You don't think it should be a crime?
That's a little different. That's
Like
a little
you're
different where you're like
literally
manipulating
extorting,
and
but
like
you're
then sharing.
Even extorting them though, that's not cool. Like,
Yeah,
that's a crime.
I get it. Like I get why it's a crime. It's hard for me when I get a phone call from, I take the report, I do what I'm supposed to do.
Like, to feel bad for him or to like.
It's hard for me to me personally, I don't think it should be a crime if you've made personal decisions as an adult to engage in that type of risky behavior, and then you get a natural consequence for doing that. Do I understand? Like, yeah, people shouldn't be extorting money from people, so I get it.
It's also interesting that we made a new crime. You already had extortion. Like, extortion's already on the books.
Right.
So like, why make another? Like, this is what drives me nuts about government, right? Is like, you already have the crime,
right?
So why are we adding another crime? It's already there. Like, you can't extort people.
Right.
No matter if it's because of an online conversation or not, you can't extort people. So there's already a crime. Why are we adding
another crime? Probably to make it a different grading. I don't know what the grading is in Pennsylvania, but yeah. And the other thing is, like, you take the report and, they don't go anywhere because half the time these people are from other states, overseas.
No, it's overseas most of the time.
Most of it's overseas, so it's literally impossible to bring a charge in the cases unless it's like local,
right?
Which does happen too sometimes. But yeah, it's just hard for me to feel
bad for them.
Yeah, like you come across and you deal with true victims of crime, like their house has been burglarized, that they have a theft or more serious crime. It's hard for me to like view you as like a victim when you've engaged in behavior like that, and then you get a consequence for it. I get it. Like, I still do my job and investigate it and do my report and
bring charges if you can.
Bring charges if you can. And still do your job. Like a lot of people I deal with.
It's just you don't have the same feeling if someone gets burglarized.
Yeah.
Like empathy or whatever.
Yeah, like empathy. That would be a good way to put it. You have a lot more empathy for, a true victim of a crime. And I guess they're a true victim of a crime.
I mean, they are. But
yeah.
I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't want to get myself in trouble here and be like,
Anthony's not going to do his job.
Anthony's not going to do his job if he does. That's not what I'm saying.
That's not how I took that.
Yeah, but
that's funny.
All right, we're out.